You know, it's interesting where you can go when you get to talking about music. And that's what we're doing today, kids. We are talking about 4 songs by 4 different artists, and as Gord Downey sang, making stops along the way. I think it's a fun one. I'm glad you're here, and we'll get to it on the other side. Hello, you're listening to the John Huff Podcast. Oh, yay. This would be so much easier, so much better, so much more effective if I could just play music on the show. How you gonna have a music podcast and not play music on the show? Technically, I can. In the same way that technically, by the laws of physics, you can run through a red light if you want to. There's nothing stopping you from driving through a red light if you want to. I've seen people do it. I've seen people do it more than one time. Don't have to stop at a stop sign. Don't even have to not kill a guy. Don't even have to not kill a guy. You can. The problem is there are likely to be consequences on the other side of that decision. And people have this argument all the time about cancel culture. Like, you can't say that, you can't say this, and you can't say that. You can. And you can tweet it, and you can put it on your Facebook, but that does not preclude consequences. So, I could, for example, play all of the songs on this show that I'm about to talk about today. And you know what? For a show at my level, chances are reasonably good nobody's going to notice. But they might. And I don't think Apple cares too much, but other podcast services, I think, have their AIs at work combing through for copyrighted material. I mean, I have heard of people having their shows flagged or even shut down and removed from a platform for playing their own music. It's copyrighted. Dude, I own it. I wrote the freaking thing and recorded it, and they're still getting flagged. And then what happens is you get into kind of a flag hell. You get into kind of a platform hell. Now, YouTube is not a great market for this particular program. I do have the show posted on YouTube, and I know that there are some people who listen to it via YouTube. But this is not a visual program, at least not yet. I doubt it ever will be, but hey, never say never. So it doesn't get a lot of action on the YouTube device because it's not visual, it's just audio. But YouTube is notorious for pulling out your copyrighted material, flagging you, kicking you off the platform. And others do that too. I think, were I to broadcast this program using Spotify as the platform, now it is on Spotify, you can access it there, and some people do, but Spotify is not my host, all right? It broadcasts it, but it is not my host. I think if you use Spotify as your host, you're allowed to use music. There's some murky language there. And then people get into something that they call fair use, which is this notion that legally you can use 20 seconds or something like that of everything. Anything that's out there is considered fair use to use 20 seconds or less of something. But then other people say, that ain't true, Jack. That is an old wives' tale. Now, I don't think I'm allowed to say old wives' tale anymore because it gives the impression that wives have tails. And that's not true. That's fake news. So you run into all sorts of problems with cancel culture for saying old wives have tails. And you get into trouble for playing copyrighted material on your podcast. A lot of people get away with it anyways. And I don't know how YouTubers do it. Like these YouTubers who do reaction videos, and that is a thing. They get away with playing the stuff or they get away with using live clips that are in some way not subject to the same copyrights. I don't know. What I do know is that the scuttlebutt, the best practices, the warnings are out there that if you use copyrighted material in your show, you can face pretty stiff consequences. You can be kicked off of platforms. You could even be sued. And I understand that up to a certain point. Now, the laws that govern copyright go back to like the 30s, when recorded music, even earlier than that, when recorded music first began to appear in the world. And so the laws we're working from did not anticipate podcasting in the year 2023 or YouTube or any of the other stuff. And we have not, to my knowledge, at least in America, updated the copyright laws to reflect our present reality. And so we're still dealing with laws that were written to protect like sheet music for Count Basie's songs. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I'm working within this framework. It is a challenge because what I'm going to do this week is just talk about a bunch of music, and I can, but I can't share it with you. And so when I say that you ought to check out this song called Hate Yourself by the band Lost Hearts, I can only tell you about it. Now, I have it on good authority that there are many amongst you who hear me talking about a song and then actually go listen to it. Or they check out my Spotify playlist, or they check out my YouTube playlist, which has the music, both of those, have the music that I talk about available for you to hear in one nice tiny location. So I appreciate that. And on an episode like this, if you don't go and listen to the music, it begs the question, why do the episode at all, Jack? But I'm trying to help out those artists out there who need new ears. And I find it compelling to talk about new music. Now, I was going to open this with something of a diatribe in relation to the band Lost Hearts from Nashville, Tennessee, and their song Hate Yourself. And I'll tell you why. I have a bee in my bonnet. It is a pet peeve of mine, an existential pet peeve of mine. These people who just make snide comments, snide critical comments on YouTube posts, on Instagram feeds, whatever. People just show up just to crap on people's music or their art or their writing or whatever they're doing. Now, I understand that in the modern world, you open yourself up to a certain amount of criticism because everything you put out online is public access. You know, in the old days, you kind of had to hear it word of mouth, or you would get a critical review in a magazine or in a newspaper or whatever, and you suck that up along with, just being in the public eye that way. But it was, to a certain extent, there was a degree of separation between you and your art and criticisms of it. But now it just can be, if it wants to be, a barrage of unfair, jealous, critical comments on stuff by snotty people who need to check themselves, all right? And I noticed this. You don't have to be you don't need a great deal of insight to recognize this. This is a plague. This is a scourge of the digital era. Everybody's got access to everything and everyone, right? And so if you're a band, if you're an artist, anybody can just hop along and throw shade at you right in your face. They can get into your DMs. They can post video messages and send them if they want. It is one of the hazards of the modern age. But I get really frustrated and I get annoyed by people who go out of their way to just turn up on somebody's page and crap on them and make snotty remarks about what they're doing. And man, if you want to see this in full flight, go look at any video by Greta Van Fleet. Go look at any video, anything posted by Greta Van Fleet, and watch the trolls come out. And I understand not liking something, right? I get that all the freaking time. I listen to a lot of new music. It is part of my research for this program. And most of what I hear does not do a lot for me. All right. And That's fine. You are allowed to not like a thing. But what a lot of people on the online world don't seem to understand is that you are allowed to not like something and just shut your proverbial effing mouth and move on. But no, what you get is these people who make a point out of whatever it is, jealousy, bitterness, wanting attention, who will stop by a video by a band and then just make a point of making a comment that says this sucks, or make a comment that says this is just a ripoff of that, or this guy's no good, or that guy can't play, or. And my question is, why? You know who doesn't do that? You know who does not? Drop by the video posted by some new young rock band and make comments like that about it. You know who does not show up to disparage somebody else's work? Successful bands, that's who. Successful bands, successful artists, successful writers ain't got time to come along and bash somebody else anonymously or without solicitation just to, boost their own freaking ego. That is low rent stuff, Jack. And if it is your modus operandi to turn up and just make disparaging, snotty comments about somebody else's work, check yourself, man, because the chances are very, very good that you ain't doing jack squat your personal self. Now, this was me in the past. I did not turn up online to bag on people, but I have held opinions in the past of other people's work. I have grown out of that, and thankfully it was pre-internet age. But that's where it comes from, It's just like wanting everyone else to know your personal opinion as though it matters in any way whatsoever, or as though anybody cares at all. But you feel, your ego feels this need to be acknowledged for having a contrary position, or having some supposed insight that other people don't have. Other people are the sheep, the unwashed masses. They don't see through Greta Van Fleet like I do, so I better tip them off that these guys are just a Led Zeppelin ripoff, These guys aren't doing anything interesting or worthwhile at all. I know, because I'm a music lover and I'm on the internet, and you should be hip to my tastes. And okay, what are you doing, Jack? Me? Nothing. I'm wandering around saying how crap everybody else is. Gets on my nerves. And it got on my nerves in the context of this song, Hate Yourself by Lost Hearts. Okay, now who is Lost Hearts? Lost Hearts is, as I said, a band from Nashville. They are a rock and roll band. They are young. They are playing guitars. They are playing big chorus, electric guitar driven rock and roll music. All right. And they dropped this tune called Hate Yourself. And overwhelmingly, the response is really super positive, like carrying the flame. Young guys coming along. They got the look. They look like a rock band. Looks, man. If you watch the video for this song, it's cool. It's just like an all white room. The band is playing. They got the hair going. They got the black outfits going. They got the Gibson guitars going. It is stylish. It is rock and roll. These cats have the freaking look, man. That is what you notice right off the bat. And I say this all the time. Look like a band. I know it seems obvious. And I know that I come out of the 80s. And so when I say look like a band, people associate me with that era. And they're like, dude, there are extremes to this. Maybe, maybe not. All right. You do not have to look like Poison circa 1986. All right. Look like a band. These guys have the freaking look. They're wearing the clothes. They got the hair. They got the guitars. They got the whole freaking thing. And I really like this song, man. It is a temptation, and it would have been for me in the past, to get a little bit jealous, to get a little bit nose in the air about it because really, I ain't doing anything. And I'm jealous of these cats. I would have felt that temptation in the past before too. But there's a lot of positive response to this. And the rock and roll is happening, man. Rock and roll, guitar-based rock and roll is still happening out there, and I think it's making a resurgence, and I'm delighted to find that a lot of the influence for that is the 80s rock and roll scene. And you hear it in this song by Lost Hearts called Hate Yourself. All right? And I really like the guitar tones on this freaking song. You know I'm a sucker for guitar tones, man. And these guys nailed this really sweet distortion. You know, the guitars are not huge. They don't overwhelm you. It's got kind of a cult vibe to me, a little bit of an AC/DC vibe, at least on the way the guitars sound and the riffs on this. And the singer's got the look. And maybe that's what pulls out the negative comments. He's a talented guy. He's got the look and he knows it. And he is staring right into the camera, singing it with a sneer because that is rock and roll, man. Now, here's the thing. You look at that, and if you are a jealous type, if you are prone to negativity, if you come into things looking to be critical, you can see somebody who presents with that kind of confidence, that kind of a sneer, what appears to be an arrogance, and you think, oh, man, that guy is such an arrogant jerk. He's not. He's a rock and roll frontman doing the rock and roll frontman thing. Probably the sweetest guy on earth off camera, but this is on camera, all right? This is the performance. And I smile when I watch the drummer in this band because I can tell, having been there myself, that he's trying to play the song in the video with enthusiasm like a rock and roller, but he's also trying not to be too loud. This is the bane of a drummer's existence in a rock and roll band shooting a video. Because if you've never shot a video, here's generally how it works. You are on location, the band is set up, and the band is pretending to play the song, all right? Now, if you're a guitar player, you're a singer, you're a bass player, you're a keyboard player, you can very convincingly fake that. You can play your little heart out with the thing not plugged in, or the amp not turned on, or turned down to 0, whatever. You can do so without volume and look like you're really giving it, man. Drummer, that's not so easy, especially in a big, loud rock song where you're riding the crash cymbal or you're riding the ride cymbal hard, and it's a big, boisterous, loud rock and roll song. You can't really fake that without breaking everybody's eardrums in the whole freaking room. What happens is they play the song over big speakers, and they'll play it a dozen freaking times, and they will shoot different angles on what's going on. So the first couple of passes through the song might be just wide shots of the whole band from different angles, right? They're just gathering material. And then the next one might be, this is close up on the singer. And if you're the guitar player, you might be able to be right out of the shoot altogether. It's just focus on the singer. Chances are the drummer is sitting right behind the singer, and so you've got to be in the shots, right? Because you're playing. And then next time we're doing focus on bass player, focus on guitar player. Next time we're doing focus on drummer. And you pass through the song X number of times to get all of the shots, right? Problem is, drummer is wailing back there, playing the song like he means it, or she, or they. And it's so freaking loud you can't hear the track that you're playing along to. That's annoying. It doesn't always matter because they're going to splice shots together. You know, hitting a cymbal is hitting a cymbal. But it's still difficult to hear the freaking song if the drummer's wailing back there and everybody's ears start to bleed, including the drummers maybe. Very, very difficult. So you see the drummer in this video by Lost Hearts, and it's a big, boisterous rock song, all right? Big chords, big chorus, very catchy, very hooky chorus, which you got to have, man. And you can tell that in the studio recording, the drummer is probably riding a crash cymbal through that. In the video, he's kind of he's crashing on the ride cymbal, but you can tell that he's pulling back. And it's a frustrating thing for the drummer because it's hard to look convincing. I've been there many, many times where I don't want to destroy everybody's ears in this room, but I got to look like I'm playing. And I just laugh because it's been there, man. I can empathize with the drummer trying to be as into this song as the rest of the band is, but trying not to blow everybody's eardrums in the process. Can be a tricky thing, man. The other bane of a drummer's existence is when they will have focus on the singer and he's singing something, and in the background, the drummer's not playing what's on the track. Like it's a different part of the song or who knows what. But for me, that gets frustrating. Or, well, I'm not even going to go there. But it can be frustrating. But maybe, I don't know, people don't notice. You notice yourself. You're watching the video that you just shot, and you're like, that's not the right part. I'm not playing the right. Anyways, there's a lot of stuff that goes into videos that you don't maybe realize, but I sympathized with the drummer from Lost Hearts trying to be as into this tune as the rest of the band, but having to pull back a little bit on his hitting. That can be frustrating. All that to say, some people popped up here and there in response to this video with just snide, snarky comments, man. The song's kind of lame. You're kind of lame. The song is, this is pretty mediocre. There's better stuff out there. How the hell are you qualified to make that judgment? And if you are, why don't you just shut the F up? Why do you feel the need to drop by some young band's page and leave they're kind of mediocre comment? You know who's mediocre, Jack? You are. What are you doing that's better than what I think is a kick-ass tune by this band Lost Hearts? And I can see stardom in this band, all right? They got the song, they got the image, they got the whole thing worked out. People are starting to notice. Eddie Trunk played this on his freaking show. That's a big boost, man. The JHP is one thing. Eddie Trunk is quite another thing. I can see some stardom, potential at least in this band. And maybe that's the thing. Maybe the jealous dudes are out there and they see it too and they wish they had it. I just don't understand. Make constructive criticisms if you want. All right? Drop by and say, hey, I like where you're going with this. I might have liked it better if. Even that's kind of a dick move. But it's better than, this is mediocre. This is lame. You're freaking lame. Why? Just because your ego so needs to be fed that you got to drop in and crap on these guys who made a kick-ass song and may have a kick-ass future with their kick-ass video. It just annoys me. It just annoys me generally about the internet. How much, the extent to which people are willing and with apparent impunity are there to just be negative and snarky about other people's art. And don't think it doesn't affect them, all right? I remember hearing an interview with Chad Kroeger of Nickelback, 10 years ago, where he went on a little roll. And he was like, you know what? Nickelback does not suck, okay? You might not like our music. It might not be what you're into, but we do not suck, all right? We are great musicians. We are a kick-ass band, and we write kick-ass songs. Whether you like them or not, we do not suck. Now, here is Chad Kroeger. At that point, I don't know if it was peak Nickelback or if it was just on the other side of peak Nickelback, but they were in and amongst the biggest acts in the freaking world. You would think, by that point in time, if anybody could be immune to this kind of dogs barking at them, it would be Nickelback. He's like, yeah, okay, bark all you want. I've got 10 or 12 million bucks I'm going to go plug in my ears so I don't hear you talking. Even he was affected by that at that point in his career. Now, what's it like for a young band just starting out to have these trolls pop up and be trolls, It's like, think about it. Think about it, man. Before you type, think. Think before you type. Is what I'm about to say in some way constructive? Is it going to hurt somebody's feelings just for the benefit of pumping my own freaking tires? And if that's the case, maybe I should grow up and not do that. Maybe I'm asking a lot. Maybe I'm asking too much of people to just be a hint, a touch, a smidge sensitive to somebody else's feelings. Just because they're on the internet does not mean they don't have a freaking soul, So grow up, trolls. Will you grow up, please? and just stop satisfying your own ego by bagging on other people's stuff. Can you do that? Can you do that for me? I like this song. Hate Yourself by Lost Hearts there from Nashville. Go and check out that video. All right, this is a rock and roll song like the old days, man. This is a group of young players, a group of really good young players banging out a really kick-ass rock and roll song. And I think it's worth hearing. So go check out Hate Yourself by Lost Hearts. I dig it. I think it's cool. Great chorus. Great swagger. This band has freaking swagger, man. And I think that intimidates a lot of people. But I'll tell you who it doesn't intimidate. The ladies. Go ask Motley freaking Crue. All right. Maybe that's not something to aspire to anymore. But they can rest assured in the knowledge that, they'll be doing a little bit better than their haters on the dating front, man. Lost Hearts, Hate Yourself, cool freaking song. All right, now I got another one. This is all just going to be music today, I've decided. There's another song I heard this week that was really, really interesting, and it's by this band called Vintersea. Vintersea. And the song is called Into the Horizon. And it's from a brand new record that I think is out now called Woven into Ashes. And if you're listening to a band with an album called Woven into Ashes, maybe you get a glimmer of what this band's about. But if you listen to this song, Into the Horizon by Vintersea, you do not get the actual picture. It's the second Vintersea song I've listened to. The first one didn't really do it for me because Vintersea is kind of a black metal, a death metal band, a bit of a prog edge, all right, which is cool. I have no issue with that. I'm just not super into the growling vocals that come with that genre, okay? What's a really weird thing for me, because I can't say, honestly, that I dislike all growling vocals. That's not the case, because I listen to one of my favorite freaking bands of all time is the technical thrash band Believer from the 80s, 90s, resurgence in the 2000s. And their singer Kurt Bachman has that kind of growling, it's a higher pitched growling kind of vocal delivery, and I freaking love it. I freaking love the way Kurt Bachman vocalizes. Their last couple records, he's actually singing, but in the classic Believer, he has this kind of screeching, yelling, kind of growly tone, which is really, really satisfying to me. But that's the rare case. Normally, I don't go in so much for that. I like the way Morgan Lander does it in Kitty. It's also got kind of a satisfying edge to it. And also Morgan's a friend of mine. That helps. You get a certain amount of leeway being friends with somebody. But in this case, in most cases, I don't really dig on the lower growling kind of vocal. It just doesn't really work for me. But in this case, this song Into the Horizon by Vintersea is actually a ballad, and a really interesting one. And the singer is a person from Malaysia called Avian Low. And it's really, really interesting. If this is the first Vintersea song you hear, it's a ballad. She's singing clean. Really nice voice, a little bit operatic, a little bit kind of dramatic. And this is just a chorusy kind of guitar sound, drums, really spooky, really moody, really kind of wistful. And there is, in this song, a really compelling, really obtuse vocal harmony. And I am a sucker for an obtuse vocal harmony. It occurs at 2 minutes, 28 seconds of the song. I would play it for you now, but I might get arrested for it. And it's just a really interesting note choice. And I love that stuff, man. Now, this is a haunting, dark, brooding kind of ballad. Clean vocals by Avian. Really nice voice. And then just this weird harmony that comes in. It's one of the things I love about King's X. And I worked it into songs that I've recorded with people too. I've attempted these slightly obtuse harmonies because I really, really dig them. I think they're very, very interesting. And so it happens on this song. But if this is your first encounter with Vintersea, then you go check out the other stuff, you're going to be somewhat surprised. Now here we have this ethereal Malaysian girl called Avian, and she's singing this song, Into the Horizon, with a clean vocal, nice voice, and you don't know that in reality, on the other songs that they've released, this girl is just growling at you like a machine. And I find that fun. It's not my preferred vocal style, but I find it fun, and I'm fascinated by people who can do it. You know, Morgan Lander once told me she would teach me. There is technique involved. There's a woman in New York City, I think, who actually teaches this technique. It's like her living now. She teaches you how to do that growling vocal. And there's probably some effects happening, some studio stuff. But anyways, you see this girl who your only exposure to her has been this song, Into the Horizon. And then you watch another one and she opens up and she's just got that huge demonic growling sound, and it's kind of cool to see that, you know, even if it's not your thing, it's kind of fun to look at. And technically fabulous musicians, and they're really, really popular. I mean, what they do, if you're into black metal, if you're into the death metal, that kind of stuff, then, and you haven't listened to this band, do so. Do so, because you'll probably really dig it, all right? The songs are musically very interesting. I'm just not super into that vocal style, but I really like this song, Into the Horizon. I really like the ballad because it's spooky and it's weird. And it's one of these songs that's just really atmospheric. You know, their sound has been described as these soundscapes. And you know I like soundscapes. So I like trancey stuff. I like meditative kind of stuff. And this has that kind of vibe to it. The other songs are like soundscapes with blast beats. You know what I mean? Different sort of vibe, but I really dig this song. And if you are into that style of music, you don't have to be to appreciate Into the Horizon, but it might be a nice gateway to you into this band Vintersea. They've just released again this new record, Woven into Ashes. They have a few records out now. They have a following. They're doing really, really well. So if you dig that, if you want something heavier, something different, you know, this might be the gateway into exploring Vintersea for you. And if you don't like it, here's a hot tip for you, all right? If you don't like it, don't go on to their YouTube page and call them mediocre, okay? Seems like a good time for the Patreon plug. Very quickly, yes, everyone, if you are new to the program, I want to thank you so much for being here. There is a Patreon page for the program. Patreon.com/John Huff Podcast. And that is where, if you are so inclined, you can support the show. You're probably sick of me saying it. I don't want to do ad reads on this program. I find ad reads intrusive and annoying on these shows. One of the great things about podcasts, as opposed to AM radio, is the lack of advertising. At least it was, you know, back in the day. And it is no coincidence that the first thing that goes when you sign up for a membership to Spotify or a membership to YouTube, the first thing to go is the ads. The first thing, that's the sell. Hey, aren't these ads annoying? Don't want to hear them anymore? Sign up and pay us. You know what I mean? It's like blackmail almost. We hate these ads too. If you want them gone, you gotta pay us. It's like a racket, man. And so it's no surprise that as soon as podcasts started becoming really popular, the first thing they started to do was advertise on them and turn them into AM radio. And so you listen to your favorite AM radio station, if you can stand it, and you get 8 minutes of programming and then 5 minutes of ads and then 8 minutes. You know what I mean? It's freaking annoying and it's just freaking drives me crazy, man. So I don't want to do that here. I've opted for Patreon as a way to monetize the program. And I like it because it's voluntary. All right. You do not have to listen to ads. You do not have to sign up to Patreon. But if you like what you hear, if you follow the show, if you get tipped off to new music, if you are inspired, encouraged, educated, if you just like having a friendly voice in your ear holes once a week, then please consider joining my Patreon site, patreon.com/John Huff Podcast. You can think of it as tipping me $1.25 for every episode I do. If you say to yourself, I'd pay $1.25 for this, then please consider doing so via Patreon. If that's not your bag, if you can't do that or don't want to. Word of mouth, as I've said, is becoming really the most effective way. So please share these episodes. Please tell your friends that this is a show worth hearing. If they are podcast listeners, please do me a solid and just tip them off to the John Huff Podcast. Helps me enormously, real listeners, really interested listeners, not bots on a boosted post on Instagram, make the freaking difference. Other thing that makes the freaking difference is ratings and reviews. So please take 5 seconds, drop me a 5-star rating. It boosts me against all of the huge Hollywood celebrities with huge network money boosting their shows. Helps me, helps the little guy just fight a little bit to get some attention so that I can hopefully, tip off even more people to bands like Lost Hearts or Burning Witches or Road Wolf or whoever we've been talking about lately. I really like the potential that this show has to be a place that can break, to a certain extent, bands. If you're down with that, consider joining me on the Patreon. We'll do that crusade, kids, and share the episodes. John Huff Podcast, Facebook, Instagram, and your TikTok. That's all I'm going to say about that right now. Patreon.com/John Huff Podcast, and thank you so freaking kindly. Want to go to another throwback sound. Last week, we talked about 19 Summertime by the Defiance, which is a glorious 80s throwback. This week, we have another one. It's the band H.E.A.T. H.E.A.T from Sweden. That's H.E.A.T. H.E.A.T's been around for a long freaking time. If you've been hip to the rock and roll scene, you've encountered H.E.A.T along the way, and they came back into prominence in kind of a weird way recently, when their former singer, Eric Gronwall, joined Skid Row for the sort of resurgence of Skid Row with Eric Gronwall, right? You want to read annoying, petty comments, go watch anything with Eric Gronwall singing for Skid Row. Because all anybody wants is Sebastian Bach, and I count myself among those, but I don't stop by the site to bag on Eric Gronwall, who's a great singer. This is not about that. This is not about Skid Row. This is about the band H.E.A.T, and it's another glorious throwback to the 80s, man. This is a band from Sweden. So much great music, so much rock music that has that flavor is coming out of Sweden these freaking days, man. And the band has a Whitesnake vibe. The band has a Europe vibe. If you were into those kind of songs, this one in particular, Will You Be by H.E.A.T, which is a new single from their record Extra Force, which is coming out in September. If you're into those songs from the 80s where the bass player just kind of rides the eighth notes, you remember those songs? He just rides the eighth notes. And as a drummer, it's so great to just sit in a pocket like that, kick on 1 and 3, snare on 2 and 4, and let the bass player just ride those freaking eighth notes. That is a pocket unlike any other, man. You want your lip to curl. You want to see people dancing in the front row. Hit a relatively slow eighth note groove where they just ride that. There's something really effective about that approach. You think of Is This Love by Whitesnake. That's the idea, all right? So this song, Will You Be, is kind of like that. Now, Eric Gronwall was the guy for like 10 years for this band. He replaced a cat called Kenny Lacrimo, and Kenny's back. Kenny's back singing with the band now. What a great voice. What a great voice Kenny's got. And this is a really good song. Some people weren't into 19 Summertime. Some people aren't into that 80s retro, 80s throwback kind of rock sound. But a lot of people are, man. And if you're one of those, then this song, Will You Be by H.E.A.T, is one to go freaking check out. Another band that's got the look, They are older than Lost Hearts. They've been around a long time. They got the look, they got the vibe, and they got, on this tune, just a really big chorus. I really enjoy this 80s revival. You know, it all comes back around, right? It all comes back around. And there will be, in another 5 or 6 years, probably like this grunge redux. That'll come back around again. And then we're probably due for another swing revival. Cherry Poppin' Daddies are touring. So, you know, there's probably another swing revival coming. What I'm waiting for is the classical music revival. Is that going to happen? That might happen. Right now, we're in the 80s revival, and this band H.E.A.T is doing it, and doing it really, really well. And to say it that way sounds dismissive, makes it sound like they're just copycatting 80s songs. They're not doing that. They have their own thing. They have their own vibe. They have modern production on it. They have modern sounds on it. But it has keyboard pads, and it has a big chorus, and I really like it. I really dig this song, Will You Be by H.E.A.T. I've not listened a lot to that band. It's just another one, man. It's just another one that gets lost along the way. One of the things that the modern YouTube streaming world has done has make it possible for bands to have their stuff heard. The consequence of that, it's not a consequence. The result of that is that there's more music than ever to be heard out there by indie artists, you know, by bands that have not been label bands, whatever. It's like there's a lot of noise. There's a lot of noise. Some of that is really great noise, some of it not so much. But it's easy to lose bands in the shuffle, right? It's easy to lose a band like H.E.A.T if you're distracted by all of the other stuff. You know, you have to make an effort. You've got to make an effort. You probably always did. But these days, you've got to make an effort to find stuff, at least until you train the YouTube algorithm to start feeding stuff to you that you might like. You know, the algorithm is not always the enemy. In this case, it started showing me stuff that has this 80s throwback sound, and I am an 80s throwback guy. There's a lot about that period of time I do not wish to remember. The music is not one of those things, all right? I dig the song, Will You Be by H.E.A.T. So if you like 19 Summertime, if you like this 80s throwback style, 80s anthemic summertime rock and roll sound, go check that stuff out. Now, we are going to close this episode with somebody who does that 80s throwback sound in a particular and in a very authentic way. And that is the legend, our old friend Tom Keifer, all right? Tom Keifer, most famous for being the principal songwriter and singer guitar player of Cinderella, which, you know, another patch on the back of your denim vest band. Cinderella, abso-freaking-lutely. If you were to name the 5 biggest acts, the 5 biggest bands of the hair era, yeah, Cinderella is going to be in that conversation, man. They were freaking huge for a window of time, you know? And they got pulled in to that glam metal scene because they emerged onto that scene with the look, all right? They emerged onto that scene with the spandex and the spiked hair and the scarves and purple and neon. You look at the cover of Night Songs, which is a cover of an album that still makes me smile. I remember the first time I laid eyes upon the cover of Night Songs by Cinderella, and it was probably vinyl, so that's a big cover, man. Just looking at that and saying, I got to hear this music. You know, your look, it shouldn't, but it does. Your look really is so important for pulling people in. And the cover of Night Songs, they're standing at the entrance to an alley. There's neon. There's like dry ice happening. They're wearing the full 1986 or 7 stage costumes. You can picture that, right? And you just look at that and go, I got to hear this. I got to hear this. Look at that freaking band. But in reality, in actuality, Cinderella was not really a glam metal band. At heart, they were more of a 70s blues rock band. And that began to come out later on in some of their music. You know, the first album, Night Songs, definitely had that kind of glam sound and edge. Songs like Shake Me, all right. Nobody's Fool, which is an all-time freaking classic. Yeah, all right. But fundamentally, you know, these guys had more in line probably with AC/DC, and that is not just an allusion to Tom Keifer's voice. Tom Keifer had that high-pitched, screaming kind of Brian Johnson voice. Very unique, though. You know Tom Keifer when you hear it, and he almost lost that voice, all right? That voice almost went away. In the 90s, Tom Keifer developed, I think, it was like a partial paralysis or nodes on his vocal cords. This is after the glam scene went away, and Cinderella got flushed away with it, man. That happened, you were around, in the early to mid-90s when the grunge thing happened, and then it became the least fashionable thing in the world to be a band like Cinderella. And that's too bad, because Cinderella had it in them, in their sound and style, to transcend genre. They didn't. They sat in that glam genre and made a heck of a lot of money at the time doing it. Played a lot of big freaking shows, man. Don't know what you got till it's gone. Probably bought some houses for people. You know what I mean? Tom Keifer developed this problem with his throat, and it was thought that his days of singing were over. Such a unique style and voice he sang with. If that goes away, it goes away. And that was kind of a calling card. Now, I know all of this. It's not like it's a secret or anything, but I interviewed Tom Keifer for the London Groove Machine blog many, many years ago, after the Keifer Band, which we're about to talk about, first appeared on the scene. And they were touring, they were playing in L-Town, and I got a hold of the publicist, and I'm like, I would like to talk to Tom Keifer, please. And they said, sure. So I got to spend half an hour on the phone with Tom Keifer, which is about as surreal as it gets, man. Talking about Cinderella, talking about post-Cinderella, and what happens to those bands who were a couple years ago at the top of the world selling out arenas, and seemingly overnight, no one would pick up the freaking phone. A lot of those musicians disappeared into obscurity. Tom Keifer disappeared into, how do I get my freaking voice back? And it was this long process of learning to sing again, correcting some of the problems in his throat. And then he was like, I have to do something like an hour or half an hour vocal warm up before I sing now. And like every day he's got to do these vocal exercises to just maintain the voice as it is. But I'm pleased to report, sweet guy, man. He gave me a really wonderful interview. He was gracious. I was nobody. I'm still nobody. And at the time I was nobody. But he gave me an honest and insightful interview. And I really value and appreciate that. And I still have the audio somewhere. Some of those interviews I did with your Keifers, Gordie Johnsons, Doug Pinnocks, I still have the audio someplace. And I don't know what the etiquette or the rules are on releasing those interviews. Maybe that's a Patreon thing. I don't know. But I still have the audio, and Tom Keifer gave me a great interview. And then that went so well that the publicist rang me up sometime later and said, hey, do you want to do Jeff LaBar as well? You know, the other guitar player from Cinderella. God rest him, he has passed away. He was releasing an album. And do you want to interview Jeff LaBar? Yes, I do. Thank you very much. And Jeff LaBar gave me just the most candid interview that anybody ever has. You want to talk about divorce settlements? You want to talk about drug and alcohol abuse and how that destroyed my band and my life? Sure, I'll talk about that. Very honest. It was really amazing, and I so appreciated that too. And I think I have that audio somewhere as well. Tom Keifer gave me a great interview. It was thrilling to talk to him. Then he's back, and he has fixed his voice to the extent that he can. At now, you know, he's like 60 years old now, maybe 62. 2019, the Keifer Band released their second album called Rise, and they've just released, for whatever reason, a video for the song Untitled. And, I mean, the album's 4 years old. The song's been out for a long time, but the video is brand new, and so it qualifies for us talking about it. And if you were into Cinderella back in the day, particularly those first couple records, Tom Keifer's solo stuff throws back to a certain extent to that without being all that glammy. But then you go and listen to Cinderella's records, it's like they were not glam. They were not glam records. They were blues records, man. They were blues records more akin to 1970s rock than 80s rock. In a lot of cases, they just had the 80s look. And so you listen to a song like Untitled, and right off the bat, this song is reminiscent of the song Night Songs, which is one of my favorite Cinderella songs. It was the first song on the Night Songs record, all right? Lead-off track. It was an interesting choice for a lead-off track because it's slow. It's not a big banger, man. It is not a big anthemic chorus banger. It's a slow, brooding, slide guitar, heavy, dirty, really, really great song, but an interesting choice as an album opener. And then the second song comes in with the big hit single, right? The big chorus, whatever. But Night Songs, very brooding and set the tone for this not being just another glam metal band, all right? There was something going on here. The slide guitar. Tom Keifer is a blues man. Tom Keifer is a blues man who is a wicked slide guitar player. Just a fabulous musician, Tom Keifer. Great songwriter. Really interesting vocal style. Really signature. You recognize it as soon as you hear it. You're like, that's Tom Keifer. And then just this killer guitar player. I remember asking him when he was detailing for me the extent to which his voice was in jeopardy. I said to him, well, would it have been okay for you to just stop singing and carry on as just being a guitar player, session player, touring band player, whatever? And he's like, dude, I'm a singer. I wanted to be a singer, and I couldn't have continued that way. It wouldn't have worked for me. Powerful, but he's got that voice. And the voice is still there, at least in the studio. I don't know. I haven't listened to a lot of live stuff. When the first Keifer Band record came out, it's around 14, and they were on Letterman. I don't know how Tom Keifer turns up on Letterman in like 2014, but that's the power of a good manager, I guess, or a label. And he came out and they played Solid Ground, which was the album opener, and that was just a huge scream. It just starts with a big old scream, and it's like, well, guess Tom's back. And then he turns up on Letterman just laying that down too. It was there. The voice was there. It was so great, and it remains so great to hear that. As I listened to this song, Untitled, which is a slow kind of halftime thing, just like Night Songs, brooding, dark, a little bit angry. It's one of those karma songs, you know, what goes around comes around kind of thing. It's another one of those where somebody done did something. And the chorus comes in and he's just hitting those notes, those high screeching Tom Keifer notes. Can do it at least in the studio. I don't know what it's like live. I would like to know though. And the Keifer Band's about to go on tour again if they're not on tour right now. Playing a bunch of dates in the States. I don't know if I'm going to get to any of those. But if they come around where I am, they do a Toronto thing, something like that, I would like to go see it. I've still never seen Tom Keifer live. I've interviewed the cat, but I have not seen him play live. And I don't know what the voice is like live, but it sounds great in the studio. It sounds like Tom freaking Keifer, and the song has just got that slide guitar happening, dark tune, brooding tune, and then towards the end it picks up. It goes from halftime to regular time, and Tom's just ripping lead guitar. You know, he is a singularly talented cat, and it bothers me. It bothers me that bands like Cinderella, because they are roped into this glam metal image, never get played on the freaking radio anymore. It drives me batty that for some reason, classic rock stops at around 1985 and picks up again at about 1993. That whole era of kick-ass music just doesn't get played. It's utterly dismissed because maybe the guys had eye makeup on or they had, hairspray going. Look past that, man. There was more than freaking Bon Jovi. There was more than freaking Def Leppard, all right? Cinderella should be getting played. Skid Row should be getting played. You know what I mean? These were the biggest songs in the freaking world for 6, 7, 8, 9 years, and it's as though it never freaking happened. And it drives me batty because Tom Keifer deserves a hell of a lot more respect than that. Even freaking Poison does. There was more than every rose has its thorn, okay? I can remember listening to a classic rock station that had just launched somewhere. I don't want to call anybody out. But when that classic rock station launched, they were playing Cinderella, and they were playing Skid Row, and they were playing Tesla, and I was so excited. I was like, yes, finally somebody gets it. And I don't know, within a few months, that was just gone. It's like, okay, we're going to play Led Zeppelin again. And yeah, it's frustrating. Frustrating for me that a whole era of amazing music by extraordinarily talented people is just chucked out because of some, I don't even know what, stigma? Because of some freaking stigma. And that's annoying to me. I find that very annoying, all right? I mean, the grunge thing was anti-image. I guess that's okay. You know, Van Halen gets played all the time. Are you telling me Dave Roth wasn't glam? You kidding me? He started all that stuff. You don't know why he didn't start it, but he popularized a lot of it. You know, those bands that came after stylized themselves on freaking Van Halen. That's credible, but Cinderella's not because why? I find that frustrating. Gonna have to start give me a serious channel. Give me a serious channel and I'll play some of this music, man. Somebody who's connected to Sirius. Will you get me on the air, please? And then we'll start doing this right. Anyways, cool video, cool song, Rise. If you've not listened to Tom Keifer since Don't Know What You Got Till It's Gone, go listen to this, man. It's a heavy tune. It's dark and brooding. Tom sounds great. He's playing great. And if you're one of our American listeners and you are from that era, go and freaking check out a Tom Keifer show, all right? Suddenly we're at the golden hour. I did not know if I was going to make it. I did not know if I was going to get this far, and that frequently happens. Frequently it happens that I sit down and I'm like, winging a prayer, man. You know what I mean? We made it this time, so do yourself a favor. Take 20 minutes. Go listen to Hate Yourself by Lost Hearts. Go listen to Into the Horizon by Vintersea. Go listen to Will You Be by H.E.A.T. And then go listen to Untitled from the Rise album by Tom Keifer, all right? That's going to be it for me. That's going to be it for me right now. I hope you are well. My voice is breaking up over here. I don't know what to say about that, except that means it's time to go. Thank you so much for listening. Remember, please recall, good things happen when you put yourself out there, and do not be one of these pricks who goes around just bagging on people online from the safety of whatever rock you live under. Support bands. Support the music you love. You know, I'm doing this. I only report on tunes that I really, really like. I'm doing this as a way of boosting those tunes and giving you some tips on stuff you might want to listen to. If there's bands you like out there, freaking support them. Buy the t-shirts, buy the records, download the stuff, go to the shows. The music industry has always been tough. It is tougher now. But together, kids, together, united, we can help some of these bands stay out there and maybe even make a freaking living. Who'da thunk? I'm going to go. Please share these episodes. If you're digging them, drop me a line, john-huff.com/contact. You can email me. You can message me via the socials. You can buy a freaking t-shirt over at john-huff.com/shop. Or a mug. Gonna shutting up. Thank you so much for being here. I will be back next week with something. And I'll check you later. My voice is so ravaged, I can't even do the sign off. I need to do some of Tom Keifer's vocal warm-ups. I'll check you later. Yeah. Do you hate yourself for loving me as much as I love you?